Also, as we look at the bigger fight against terror, the United States has 3,500 troops in Iraq, but the fight against ISIS remains largely an air campaign. Experts are saying the U.S. and other members of the worldwide coalition should be prepared for a war that will last many, many years and be quite protracted. In fact, we might have to redefine what winning this war will look like. So says Aaron David Miller. He joins us now. He is the Vice President for New Initiatives and a distinguished scholar for the Woodrow Wilson International Center. Thank you for being with me, Aaron.
Pleasure to be here, Bobby.
Let's read part of your Wall Street Journal op-ed this week. Quote, "We can no more conclusively win the war against jihadi terror than we can win the wars against crime or drugs." That is a very frustrating analogy to make for Americans. Make the case.
Well, I mean, it is frustrating, but we're not in kindergarten. I mean, we can be told by our leaders and particularly by our politicians, all of them who are running for office, that this, frankly, is not some kind of 10-day or even a year slam dunk. I mean, the fact is we've been fighting this war, think about it now, for 14 years since 9/11. Some would argue 20 years before. That's twice the number of years and then some, Poppy, that it took the Allies to defeat the Axis powers during the Second World War. And by the looks of things, jihadi terror, frankly, is actually thriving. I mean, attacks against France, the United States, Russia, all within the last 6 weeks. So I'm not suggesting that we're in decline or that we should be defeatist in outlook. I just think that our leaders, the president, the R's that are running for president, and the D's need to level with the American public. And I think, frankly, they can handle it. You got a broken, angry, dysfunctional Middle East that is continuing to spew out all kinds of hatred against the West. You've got broken states in Syria and Iraq, empty spaces, access to guns, and now we hear access to the capacity to produce passports. So
right.
I just think we have to redefine America. Look, Americans love Hollywood endings. We love comprehensive, definitive solutions. And frankly, right now, against jihadi terror, I don't think there is one.
So Aaron, part of this is also how Muslims are treated in this country, right? And there are experts who have said, look, if you discriminate against them, you play right into what ISIS wants. I want to read you part of what my colleague Fareed Zakaria wrote in his op-ed in the Washington Post this week. Quote, "This is the real danger of Trump's rhetoric. It forces people who want to assimilate, who see themselves as having multiple identities, into a single box. The effects of his rhetoric have already poisoned the atmosphere. Muslim Americans are more fearful and will isolate themselves more. The broader community will know them less and trust them less. A downward spiral of segregation will set in." Do you agree? Does the rhetoric from Donald Trump this week about temporarily banning Muslims, does it make it harder to fight ISIS by alienating Muslims here?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, not only is it un-American, impractical, and frankly inconsistent with all of our values, however imperfect our efforts have been over the years, and however deep some of the existing prejudices may be, and how frightened we are of the immigrant stranger. The fact is, I mean, think about it. I mean, you already have, and San Bernardino demonstrated it, an existing pool of Muslim Americans who are influenced by this jihadi ideology, and I think, creating stigma and segregating and banning them from entry, I would argue, is only going to make the problem worse.
But that's exactly what a Trump supporter, Aaron, told me earlier in the show. Paula from New Hampshire said, look what happened in California. We have to keep people like that out. She groups them together.
Well, there's no question that we have to take a very tough look at our visa waiver policies, particularly in view of the passport issue, which has now come to light. But that doesn't mean that we need to or should, or that it's morally or even practically relevant or right to essentially discriminate against an entire religion, and certainly American citizens. We are going to need American Muslims in this fight. And the reality is, I think we have to understand that and do our own bit of recruiting, not to alienate, not to segregate. I mean, look, Pop, this is a long war to begin with. You want to make it longer? you want to increase the possibility of additional attacks, well, then you hunker down and you stigmatize and you alienate. And frankly, over time, that's going to get us into a great deal of trouble. I'm simply calling more realism in the debate, particularly among our politicians on this issue.
Well, we'll be listening to what they all say on Tuesday night in the GOP debate. Aaron David Miller, thank you very much. You can read his fascinating op-ed on the Wall Street Journal. Appreciate it. Coming up next.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.